And welcome to the pit stop. Of course, this is the look back version of the show for the week, meaning we look back last week at Bristol Motor Speedway. Of course, the Truck Series got underway Thursday night, Xfinity Series Friday night, and then the Cup Series elimination race, I should say, for that Cup Series on Saturday night there under the lights at Bristol. We look back at all of that. News looking ahead, of course, later on in the week, coming Thursday. We do our look ahead week, right? And this weekend, got New Hampshire Motor Speedway here for the Cup Series and the Truck Series this weekend. Xfinity off here. They don't start again until Kansas on September 27th for them. That'll be on Thursday. We'll get that out for you here on demand at Robat TV. Of course, free podcast at the Pit Stop Talk. There on Podbean is where you can find that free podcast. Then, of course, on the YouTube channel as well. You can find us there, and appreciate you joining us as well on demand at Robat TV. And look, we're right in the middle of the playoffs. There was some fun racing last weekend. Overall, I thought the racing weekend, it started off kind of boring, if I will, right? The Truck Series was all right. It was all right racing. Xfinity Series picked up a little bit. And then that Cup Series, I thought, was just an all-time fun little race there, competitive till the end. Brad Keselowski trying everything he can to win that race as a non-playoff driver. And woo-wee, we're right in the thick of things as we're going into the heart of the playoff situation. Of course, on this broadcast, we do a little bit of news as it comes out earlier in the week. Of course, we do these shows Monday, Tuesday, and have them up by Tuesday for you. And we look at the news that's breaking early in the week. We do have an IndyCar schedule out officially now, and we'll show you that here at the end of the show as well. We'll do a little bit deeper dive going into that as we talk at the Look Ahead show coming up here on a Thursday of this week. But first, obviously, the Look Back show here. We look back at Bristol Motor Speedway weekend. It was kind of fun watching a truck race on a Thursday night. Now, the racing could have been a little bit more fun, in my opinion, out there, but it was fun sitting down, watching racing on Thursday night, and, just used to that being there on the Friday nights, and little changes doesn't hurt things, especially what it gave us as the racing weekend went on around there. Of course, race 2 of 3 here in the first round, the round of 10 for the Truck Series, and we saw some serious playoff movement here between teams at this race. Of course, Corey Heim won the first race in the Truck Series. And I told you last week at the Look Ahead show last Thursday that Lane Riggs is going to be a serious contender going into this weekend. I do believe I picked him. I had a successful weekend here at Bristol going into that, right? Corey Haim's playoffs to win. He's not going to win every race. You've got to pick out some other guys to do so. Well, in this race 2 of the 3 here in the round of 10, or I call it the first round of the playoffs for the Truck Series, Lane Riggs. First lap spin all the way to winning this race here at Bristol Motor Speedway for him. He took the lead there in lap 141 and just didn't relinquish it after that point here. This Bristol race, it was just a lot of front runner in this race. As the race went on, there was only 4 cautions, only 31 laps here, which can make for some exciting racing out there, especially at Bristol. There was 5 lead changes among 4 drivers. So it just kind of shows you what this was. It was just domination racing here in the Truck Series as we go forward. If you missed the way he won it, here's Lane Riggs here with the checkered flag. This would be Truck 1.
Got married last week. He was there celebrating with them, and what a moment this is going to be. Final lap at Bristol Motor Speedway. Lane Riggs looking for the checkered flag for the 3rd time this season off at turn 4. He does it. Lane Riggs wins it at Bristol Motor Speedway. What a drive. He does it from the back of the pack.
Awesome job, pit crew. So proud of you, boys.
Spun there in lap 1. Obviously, you started in the back. Still led 110 laps in this race. And if I told you who else led in this race, well, your guess should be Corey Heim. He led 122 laps here in this race. Corey Heim did. Ends up with a 3rd place finish here in the second race of the truck playoffs here, round of 10 for him out there. So Lane Riggs gets the win, and you can see he just pulled away from everybody as the race went on. after he took that lead, and just nobody else kind of gave him a side. Right? Ben Rhodes finished second, non-playoff driver. Ben Rhodes, of course, previous champion in this series, not in the playoffs this year, finished second. Corey Heim, that third spot. Ty Majeski, defending his championship in this truck series, finished fourth. Daniel Hemrick in fifth. Then you got Tanner Gray, non-playoff drivers. Tanner Gray, Connor Mozak, Andres Perez de Lara, they're in eighth place. Corey LaJoy in ninth, and Matt Crafton in 10th place there to wrap up the top 10. 4 playoff drivers in the top 10 here. You can see they were just far distance back here in this race as it went on in the truck series. Other playoff guys to kind of pay attention to, and there were some problems here. Obviously, 4 in the top 5. Solid finish there by those guys here in this second race. And we show you the points, we'll kind of show you the shakeup here. But some real trouble here for a couple of these playoff drivers. Most notably, Chandler Smith here. He had power steering issues here in this race. Lap 32, he went and put his car in the garage to get worked on. Ended up being 12 laps down before he came back and came back onto the racetrack. Ends up finishing 30th here in this race, running several laps down. Only got 236 of the 258 laps done for Chandler Smith, their playoff driver, finishing 30th. Obviously not ideal on that point. And then the other playoff driver that had serious issues, Jake Garcia, in this race. He won stage 1, but then his car just inexplicably lost power on the race on lap 84. So he had to go to the garage as well. Ends up finishing this as a playoff driver. 219 laps for him. He, of course, by winning stage 1, did lead 14 laps in this race, but finishes 33rd here for him. 219 of the laps done. Playoff success struggles when you finish 33 and several laps down around here for this lost power in lap 84 for him on that side. So some issues with some guys, so we get some playoff shakeup here. Obviously, Lane Riggs, by winning this second race of the 3 here in the round of 10, automatically moves on. Him and Corey Heim moving on to the next round here. And let's throw up those playoff standings. Truck 2, now, if you would. 1 and 2, obviously Corey Heim, Lane Riggs. 1 race to go here in the round of 10. Daniel Hemrick in 3rd, Ty Majeski 4th, 46 points to the upside there for Ty Majeski, 51 for Daniel Hemrick. Tyler Ankrum 29, and him and Grant Effinger there 5th and 6th, but 29 points on the good from that. I do believe unless something major happens, those guys are all moving on. 1 and 2, but 3 through 6 are moving on to the next round. They're just running well right now. Now, disaster can strike, and somebody could get knocked out of here. The big threats here are Caden Honeycutt and Roger Caruth there in the 7th and 8th spot. Switching places there with Jake Garcia and Chandler Smith. The disaster that happened here at this race at Bristol put Jake Garcia and Chandler Smith on the backside going in. You can make up these points to get on there. Chandler Smith, though, a win would make it obviously better for him to get through to the next round. So to me, Caden Honeycutt, Raja Caruth on the positive side are the 2 drivers that are kind of a threat to not move on and move down to the bottom side. Jake Garcia and Chandler Smith, they can make that up. They can obviously win, but they can make up those points to push out one of those other drivers here coming up from that side. So we do have a competitive 3rd round, unlike in the Truck Series, where we kind of knew who or in the Cup Series, we kind of knew who was going to get cut in that round, and we'll talk about that coming up from that perspective. There, we do have some intrigue going into the final truck race before the cuts happen here this weekend. So the Truck Series moves on to New Hampshire. They do race Saturday morning, 12 Eastern, 9 a.m. Phoenix time here, of course, where we broadcast from New Hampshire this weekend for the Truck Series. And we will see who the final 2 drivers are that get cut this weekend. It would be disappointing for Chandler Smith to get knocked out of the playoffs here in the first round, but sometimes bad luck hits you. What can you do about that, of course, as you go through these playoffs? That's why playoff points are important, and that's why winning is important on the truck side of things here moving forward. So New Hampshire this weekend, and the Xfinity Series is off this weekend, but of course they did race last weekend there at Bristol as well. So with Cup truck race, to me, yeah, it's all right. No other way to put it. It was on Thursday night. I had it on next to Thursday Night Football, and it was just there. Dominating race there once he got to the lead there by Lane Riggs. Obviously, Corey Haim dominated it there for the first part of it. So then you're kind of watching. Then the playoff issues that happened on Sammy Smith, Jake Garcia, kind of just told you they were going to move to the bottom there. So not a lot of intrigue there. So maybe we'll get that changed here coming up with the Xfinity as a race here this weekend. As last weekend, of course, surprise winner here in the Xfinity Series. Obviously there at Bristol. The first race of their first round here, the round of 12 for the Xfinity Series, as their playoffs just got underway. So they have 2 more races, before they are cut here. The bottom 4 are cut. They go from 12 to 8, for those of you not aware of that. So in race 1, shocker here, Eric Almirola gets the win here for the Xfinity Series at Bristol. It was a big battle here toward the end, right? Eric Almirola, Connor Zilisch, Justin Allgaier, those 2 teammates battling it out there with Eric Almirola, and Eric Almirola's able to finally beat them. He even said so after the race. He said, I'm just tired of them winning everything, right? And beating us out there, is what he said. 36 laps to go. Interesting move here as there was a caution on the track. And you had some decisions to make. Well, Xfinity won. Let's see what happens.
Look at this. Oh. Come down and get some tires. Shot fake. Mayer stays out. So does Almirola. Here they are. Brandon Jones is in, Dylan.
You see right there, 36 laps to go. Decisions need to be made. Eric Almirola, going for the win, stays out. Connor Zilisch goes in. The other leaders go in for the most part. And he stays out, which means fresh tires are going to be battling against specifically Eric Almirola, right? And see who can win this race. A lot of times, fresh tires, well, they beat old tires out there. Well, let's go to the white flag here, Xfinity 2.
Through turns 3 and 4. We'll see the white flag this time around. 1 lap to go, sponsored by Credit One Bank.
He threw a slider here earlier. He didn't do it that time, but he might clear him in a second.
Creed to second. Is there enough time? Driving down below Almirola. Coming back to the checkers. Creed is there, but it's Almirola who wins it at Bristol.
Sheldon Creed, of course, another playoff driver, trying to get that win as well. Just didn't have enough to catch Eric Almirola. And that strategy move of staying out when everybody else went in ended up paying that out. Eric Almirola led those 34 laps there after staying out. Nobody could pass him. After that, Connor Zilisch led 98 of the laps here in this race. Justin Allgaier, his teammate in the 7, led 95 of the laps as well. Sam Mayer, 68. So we said going into this playoffs, I had in mind, 3 specific drivers to pay attention to in this round. Obviously, Connor Zilisch, it's his playoffs to win. Defending champion Justin Allgaier's teammate, well, he can win this playoff as well. They showed their dominance out there. I said, pay attention to Sam Mayer. He's going to surprise some people to get to that championship for. Eric Almirola, though, nowhere on my list of people to pay attention to on this, and he gets that win by staying out. Fantastic strategy, and it worked out for him out there. Hey, we haven't heard from Eric Almirola in a long time. Let's check in with him after winning that race.
So I want to ask you about that last pit stop, because I'm hearing that the team told you to do whatever the 88 did, and you did something different. Was that your call, or whose decision was that ultimately maybe won you the race?
Yeah, I just been tired of getting beat by those guys. I figured I'd try my chances with the lead. They've been so fast, and they fire off so fast on new tires, and I just didn't think that I could beat them straight up on new tires. It took me about 20 laps to get going, so I thought my best chance was to stay out on old tires. And Seth and I watched, I don't know, the last 2 or 3 races here, and we saw where the 9 car with Noah Gregson won with like 100 laps on his tires. So I decided to stay out when they said pit.
I mean, made his own decision, paid off with the win there for Eric Almirola. I love it when strategy comes involved in these racetracks, and made his decision himself. They told him to pit, and he made the decision to stay out. Thought it was his best chance going forward. It had some history behind him as well in his mind by watching other races out there. How competitive, as opposed to the Truck Series, how competitive was the Xfinity Series here at Bristol? 7 of the top 10 spots and finishing spots were taken by playoff drivers. These guys were out there, right? Eric Almirola, of course, in first place. Sheldon Creed, second playoff driver. Sam Mayer, third. Carson Kvappel in fourth. Connor Zilich in fifth. Justin Allgaier in sixth. And then Harrison Burton, the final playoff driver there in the top 10 in that 7th spot. Everybody was fighting for this win out there. Christian Eckes, a non-playoff driver. Jeremy Clements as well. Brendan Poole finish out your top 10 in the Xfinity Series. So it was a fantastic race, fantastic finish here, and the strategy paid out well for Eric Almirola. And congrats to him, man. Anytime you take a chance on strategy, it's either going to pay off or it's not. And a lot of times we see it not pay off. Right? How many times have we seen Ryan Blaney, for instance, run out of gas on the last lap, on a restart and have to pull off, etc.? It happens all the time. So when it does pay off, it's kind of fun to see that happen as well out there. As you're kind of doing that strategy. Other playoff drivers, kind of where they finished. Brandon Jones was in 11th. 13th was Nick Sanchez. Taylor Gray in 14th place here. Then we get down into some of the guys that are having some issues here in this first race of the first round of the playoffs. Austin Hill, man, ever since, he got his points stripped from him and he's in, that suspension, he just quite frankly has kind of just struggled out there a little bit. He's had some good races, but just struggled out there. In the first playoff spot, first race, finishes at 19th for him in this race as well. Just could not get up there in the front at the end and stay up there. Jesse Love, 25th here in terms of playoff drivers. And then Sammy Smith, engine problems on this race, finished 37th on the playoff side. So obviously Sammy Smith taking his car to the garage on lap 55 for that engine problem. 56 might have been one of those two numbers. Obviously it means terrible first race here of the playoffs for Sammy Smith. He obviously took the biggest hit in playoff points as well, and the biggest finish on that side. So let's go ahead and throw up the playoff points here after one race in the Xfinity Series here at Bristol. Obviously, Connor Zilich, Justin Allgaier, still up there leading this pack. They didn't get the wins here, but both had solid finishes. They're going to continue to be 1 and 2 with a substantial lead. Well, Connor Zilich has a substantial lead on Allgaier. Allgaier has a substantial lead on Sam Mayer. Mayer just needs to do his thing to make the Final Four here in Phoenix and not worry about those guys, because then Sam Mayer has a substantial lead over Carson Kvappel at 16 points up. After one race, look at this, folks, 16 points. Forget about 1 through 3. They're moving on to the next round. Don't have to worry about that, right? Obviously, you don't have to worry about them at all because of, the point lead here going forward from that side. Then, of course, you've got the guys that are closer. Look at this. Carson Kvappel, Harrison Burton, Brandon Jones, Sheldon Creed, and Taylor Gray. Look how close their points are. 16 and under here in those 8 spots coming their way. Nick Sanchez, Jesse Love, Austin Hill, and Sammy Smith. Sammy Smith took the biggest hit here in this racetrack with his run as well. Sammy Smith, 24 points can be made up here in the next couple rounds. That's not an issue, for him moving forward. That's just not. He can easily overcome that 24 points. But look at this here. 4 through 12 are just huge points here and close points here that can be made up one race or another. Austin Hill with his finish, 16 points on the backside. Jesse Love, Nick Sanchez, 3 points difference there as they continue to go forward on this racetrack and what we're seeing here between these guys coming up. This was a good race. This was, a lot of closeness here, I guess I should say, here in this Xfinity side of things, and what's happening in this race. This Xfinity series is going to be, even though the top three guys have big, substantial point leads, at least the first two rounds is going to be a knockout, drag-out finish here to see who can advance via points. It's kind of the question that we have to pay attention to as we go through the rest of these races here in this first round. 2 more to go, folks. Next up, off week this week, and then they got Kansas coming up the week after that on September 27th. Saturday night is when the Xfinity Series gets back underway. Kansas Speedway, Kansas Lottery 300, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. our time. Obviously, we'll talk more about that. On the Look Ahead show on Thursday, we won't pay attention there to the Xfinity Series. Be another week or so before we look forward to them coming up from that Xfinity side. But these guys are close-knit. This is the most competitive playoff in terms of points, with how many guys are on the positive side, barely, and how many guys are on the lower side. Now, that's going to be the story here. As I said, the top 3 guys are just going to advance for the first couple rounds. In theory, they're going to advance, and we'll have to see where they go at that point. So Eric Almirola, surprise winner there, of course, at Bristol, which means playoff contention here, with 2 more races for these guys. Of course, off week and then Kansas. And when we come back here at Pit Stop, we keep it rolling. Let's look at the Cup Series. I thought this was the most competitive race by far. Most fun race over the weekend here at Bristol. Then we'll talk a little IndyCar schedule as that is out here. Of course, we'll have some follow-up on that coming the Look Ahead show later on in the week. But we'll at least tell you the highlights that we have, as that news is just breaking here today as well. So come on back, folks. It's the Pit Stop. And we're back here at the Pit Stop. Our look back show early in the week. Of course, a couple weeks ago, we changed the format. We do a look back according to the racing, early in the week, Monday, Tuesday. We look back at the racing the previous weekend. Then later on in the week, Thursday, we look ahead to the weekend in racing and what is happening. Of course, this week, New Hampshire for the Truck Series and Cup Series, so we'll look ahead to that as well. Do a more in-depth dive on the Indy schedule that is officially out now. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the show, but before we go to the Cup Series, I want to make another quick note here, at least on the Xfinity side of things. Eric Almirola getting that win, just makes the points more important here with 2 races to go in this round, right? Because obviously only 2 drivers, well, in theory, only 2 drivers are going to win to move on. We'll see if a non-playoff guy continues to win here, right? Manufacturers are kind of interesting. The 4 drivers that are underneath the cut line, Nicholas Sanchez, Jesse Love, Austin Hill, and Sammy Smith, all Chevrolet drivers. Then on the other side, Connor Zilic, Justin Allgaier, Carson Kvapil, top 4, drivers out there as well. Of course, Ford being the other one. Ford has 3 cars in this in the playoffs. Toyota has 2. Chevrolet, of course, has the 7 drivers there. So could we see a big cut here in Chevrolet? I think Austin Hill has a serious issue. I think maybe he needs some confidence or whatever to win. There's 16 points can be made up in 2 races. I'm just not too sure he's going to be able to do it. Sammy Smith, I think, will be okay as long as his car cooperates with him moving forward here. But I'm intrigued by this Xfinity playoff run here and how close those drivers are. And then, of course, the Cup Series, also Bristol, Saturday night, under the lights there at the Coliseum. Race 3 of 3, which means we get cuts, right? 4 drivers. And there's no intrigue here going into this race. I told you this in last week's Look Ahead show. There's 0 intrigue. We know who the 4 drivers that are getting cut going into this race, unless something major happens. And we almost saw some major things happen in this race. But then as the race fires off, 3 out of the 4 cut guys made it clear they weren't even going to compete here for the win. We'll talk about that coming up. But, folks, the ending of this race was fantastic. I told you last week Christopher Bell was going to come out of his slide. I like the energy he had after the race before, where he was pretty much yelling at his team, I'm sick of the way we're running. I'm tired of it. I had a feeling him and that JGR team with his 2 counterparts winning race 1 and race 2 of this first round of the playoffs. Christopher Bell gets the win. That means Joe Gibbs Racing, JGR, gets to sweep here in that first round of the playoffs, right? Round of 16 on the Cup side. All Joe Gibbs wins, all Toyota wins in that first round of the playoffs. That is dominant there by the JGR teams in the Cup Series. A lot happened here within this race. Let's just go ahead and show you Cup 1, 3 laps to go.
Carson Hocevar takes the field to green. Zane Smith has the inside run. Bell is pushing. Look at that 20. The 2 youngsters go high, and Bell goes straight through to the lead. Christopher Bell, when it counts most. And Keselowski goes through on the inside. 3 laps to go for Christopher Bell to win in the playoffs. He won 3 races in succession earlier this season, and there's been a lot of frustration. He went berserk on the radio after the race last weekend with frustration and disappointment and anger, and now he's only 2 laps from victory in the playoffs. Joe Gibbs Racing has dominated these 2025 playoffs with Chase Briscoe, with Denny Hamlin, and now it's Christopher Bell, who's 1 lap to go, thanks to Credit One Bank, away from victory. But Keselowski's not done with yet. Here comes Brad. Hits him hard.
Good, perfect. Stay
Bell
on, dude.
sustains it, and Bell's going to drive to victory. How about that? Christopher Bell in Bristol. That was beautiful.
I mean, just fantastic ending to this race. Brad Keselowski, a couple times this year, has been there at the end and just not able to pass, not able to get that win. You saw the bump. He flat out put his car into the back of him to try to get him a little bit squirrely, kind of get him so he can get that momentum to get around him. Christopher Bell hangs on. A week after showing frustration, started the season off so well with those 3 wins in a row, including here in Phoenix back in March, and then just a lot of a mediocre after those 3 wins, and gets to come back here and gets the win there at Bristol. Christopher Bell has not been in winner's circle, like I said, since those 3 wins. So let's check in with Christopher Bell after the race.
But Bristol, baby, tonight it's us.
Christopher Bell advances to the round of 12.
Keep it short and sweet. Winning there at the Coliseum. So Christopher Bell, obviously playoff driver, Joe Gibbs Racing. He only led 12 of those laps. Those are the 12 that he needed to win that race as well and get JGR in the winner's circle all 3 of those rounds. As you saw, non-playoff driver Brad Keselowski led 33 of those laps. Just not able to get past Christopher Bell there at the end. And he tried everything to get there. Zane Smith was in 3rd spot, non-playoff driver as well. Then you get the playoff guys, right? The teammates, Team Penske, Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano there, 4th and 5th place for both of them. Corey Heim, who was running up at this level here at Bristol. Corey Heim there in 6th place. Carson Hocevar in 7th. Then you got the playoff drivers of Alex Bowman and Chase Briscoe in the 8th and 9th spot for both of them to finish this race on the playoff side. In terms of, Alex Bowman made a big run here in this race, but it just wasn't enough to get to that cut line. He was the one playoff driver that had a chance if he would have had some more success here to getting and advancing on it, from that side. So he did make it interesting, but not enough on the other side. So before we get to, the all 4 of the cuts here, I'll just we all know it. Alex Bowman gets eliminated here in this round. Made some effort there in this Bristol race, put a big fight into it. I think he ended up being only 12 points out of that last spot for a guy that came in that dead last spot here going into it. So Let's check with Alex Bowman after this race. His disappointment on the playoffs, his disappointment on the season, and what happened, of course, in Bristol. Alex Bowman after the race.
I don't think really one thing. I don't think you can really point at something that cost us. Being out of tires at the end isn't good, right? And honestly, we just played the hand that we could and stayed out. But if I had to pick one thing, you know, our cycle tire restarts were just really poor. I couldn't go at all, zero grip. So our restarts on stickers, or even when we put our qualifying scuffs on and stuff, it was fine. But cycle tires was really bad. So hats off to our whole Ally 48 team. They did a really good job throughout the course of the day, and you know, trying to be better after a rough last 2 weeks. And I think we swung it the right direction, and we can continue to do that for the next what do we have, 7 weeks left. So yeah, we just got to keep digging. Certainly sucks to not transfer, but our back was against a wall coming in here. We knew it was going to be a tough thing to do. So yeah, not a terrible day for us, and we'll keep digging.
I mean, Alex Bowman came in with his back against the wall, no doubt about it. He was the one that I was like, he's definitely not moving on. And he fought hard and got closest one of all of them. I mean, Josh Berry, a lap 75, smoking the car, his day's done. He had to exit the car at that point as well. Finished all 3 playoff races, Josh Berry did, dead last here. Terrible playoffs for Josh Berry here in this first round as well. Chase Elliott, even though he does advance, he had enough points. He finishes second to last there, just in front of Josh Berry. That accident there in lap 311. He does advance in points, but second to last year in that point. In terms of other guys that got caught, right, from the playoffs, Austin Dillon. These were settled before the end of this race. Alex Bowman, even though you didn't think he was going to advance, at least made it interesting to watch him. Austin Dillon, lap 28, he pitted. Speeding penalty from him. He ended up finishing 28th in this race, cut, eliminated from the playoffs as well for him. And then SVG. We just knew SVG was struggling on the ovals. SVG went backwards in the first 2 stages, just couldn't keep up the speed, lost laps as it went on. Spun in turn 4. William Byron bumped him from behind. Spun out there. He spun again later in the race. Ended up finishing 26th, I believe. 26th for SVG, Shane Van Gisbergen there. So 3 out of the 4 playoff cuts were settled going into this race. First parts of the race, you knew they weren't going to advance. Alex Bowman, give him the credit. I just don't think Alex Bowman, I think there's talks behind the scenes. I'm not reporting anything, but I think there's talks behind the scenes on Alex Bowman being part of Hendrick Motorsports. Maybe not going into next year, but definitely thoughts if he's the guy to be in that 4th team there for Hendrick Motorsports. He made the playoffs, which I think gives him a little breathing room. Made some effort here in the last race of the playoffs to put some pressure, on that last spot to move on. Ultimately getting cut at that point for him as well. But now I think we'll get a little bit more competitive here in these playoffs with getting down into the round of 12. I think we'll get a little bit more competitive as we go on here. But as I said, in this race, Bubba Wallace finished 34th. That accident there, lap 487, ends up out of that race. Did lead 12 laps there, right? I told you Chase Elliott, in terms of guys moving on. Chase Elliott finished 38th in this race. Carl Larson, 32nd. Denny Hamlin, 31st. Obviously has won a race in these playoffs, so he's automatically moving on. Along with these guys, Austin Cindric, 30th here. Yeah, I told you Austin Dillon eliminated now. They're in the 28th spot as well. So Ross Chastain, 19th in this race. So Austin Cindric, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, Bubba Wallace, Chase Elliott, all advancing on. And just bad races here when they round up in the very end of this of the running order here at Bristol as well. So, caution flags, 14 flags here in the Cup Series for 137 laps. For them, lead changes, 36 among 14 drivers. So action-packed movement here on the Cup Series there at Bristol. And now we have the cuts, and we're down to the final 12. Let's throw up the playoff odds here. This would be Cup 4, I believe. So obviously, everything gets reseeded here in the second round of the playoffs. Second round of 12 of these playoffs. 3 races coming your way as well. Here, New Hampshire will be the first race. Then Kansas after that. Then the Charlotte Roval here in this round now. So underneath, outside looking in right now with the reshuffling. And they're all close. Everybody's in it at this point. But Austin Cindric's in that 9th spot. Ross Chastain in the 10th. Joey Logano again starting outside looking in. He did that in the first round as well. Then Tyler Reddick there in the 12th and final spot. Obviously wide open for those 4 drivers to move on in advance and get in those top 8 to advance after 3 races. I mean, we see Bubba Wallace there on the cut line on the inside, barely on out. We see him there a lot. It's a familiar place for Bubba Wallace there in that 8th spot. Only 1 point to the good side. Chase Elliott needs some good runs here in this round in that 7th spot +5. He can't have another race like Bristol, or he's going to find himself underneath looking out. Chase Briscoe, 10 points up there in that 6th spot. Ryan Blaney in the 5th spot, 19 points up for him as well. Christopher Bell, 20 points to the positive in the 4th spot. Then you got William Byron and Kyle Larson, teammates there, 24 points in that 2nd and 3rd spot with their 32 playoff points, coming into this round. Then, of course, Denny Hamlin, 34 playoff points. He's 26 to the good there over that 8th spot with him from that side. So, predictions on this round. This is a close knit. Win and you move on. It's more important now. Like we got, I don't know how to phrase it without sounding insulting to the 4 guys that got eliminated. But the 4 guys that got eliminated probably shouldn't have been in the playoffs anyway, if you want to think about it from that perspective. They're in it because of the 16 spots. They got rid of the guys that have struggled this year, the guys that made the playoffs, but on the struggling side of things. And now we're down to 12 guys that could win and move on, 12 guys that can make playoff points to move on. So the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series, we have some intrigue now, folks. 1 bad race by Denny Hamlin. Kyle Larson has another bad race. They're going to be on the outside looking in. This is going to be fun to watch with New Hampshire coming up this weekend. Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern, which makes it 11 a.m. Phoenix time there at New Hampshire. We'll talk about New Hampshire and set you up for that as well coming up on our Look Ahead show here coming up on Thursday. Robat TV On Demand, the free YouTube channel, and, of course, at the Pit Stop Talk on Podbean. Free, of course, podcast there as well for those of you that like to listen to the podcast things. Other Cup news that's out there right now here early in the week. We cover most of the news on the Look Ahead show, but obviously as it breaks, we talk about it. We did find out that NASCAR met with all the teams, specifically to comment on those text messages that came out from that 2311 Front Row Motorsports lawsuit from a couple weeks ago. And then they also kind of discussed possible playoff changes coming the way for NASCAR as well. So NASCAR met with the team presidents out there, and Steve O'Donnell, NASCAR's president, specifically addressed those text messages in that lawsuit that did come out from that point. So why do they need to address those? Some trickle-down effect, right? This lawsuit is draining on the other teams not involved with it, obviously NASCAR as well. Then you saw those text messages from the NASCAR side, specifically the text message where NASCAR said, let's give the teams a bad deal. Some argument on that, and it was addressed, of course, from Steve O'Donnell and that stuff. But that was the main one here because the conversation text there among several NASCAR holding executives, O'Donnell was quoted in the text in the lawsuit as saying the charter renewal offer at the time could be interpretive as effing the teams. I'll clean it up for you guys out there in terms of the proposition. So basically, the text was a deal. Well, obviously, a lot of teams are concerned about that text, and did they get a raw deal, right? And their initial offering, et cetera, and stuff like that. So some initially interpreted that text there from CEO of NASCAR, O'Donnell, was saying that NASCAR should offer a bad deal. Obviously, people around NASCAR are saying that's not the case. The opposite was actually the case. So they had to talk about that in the meeting because this lawsuit is going to do damage. I've told you guys all along. NASCAR is going to win the battle or going to win the war, but they're not coming out unscathed, right? Teams are going to kind of think differently about them. Text messages coming out, etc. And 2311 and Front Row Motorsports are going to take some flesh in this deal as well as they go forward. So, according to all the things I've read, right? Bob Pockris out there, Jeff Gluck, J-Ski. I've kind of read all of their synopsis of the meeting from drivers and team professionals that they've heard about there. But they also addressed during the meeting, other things. But overall, well, everybody came away with the feeling that NASCAR is likely to change the playoff format next year, of all things. I happen to like this playoff format. You generally don't have the best regular season guy win in any sport. IndyCar, right? Alex Palau, won the championship, 3 or 4 weeks before the end of the season. Football, you have a playoff format. The best team doesn't always win. College basketball, the NCAA tournament, best team doesn't always win. NBA, the best team doesn't always win. So I like this format. Now you got eliminations after 3, things like that. Can you tweak that? Probably, right, as you move forward. But the feeling is playoff tweaks starting next year. 2 people familiar with NASCAR's thinking did caution against the interpretation that playoffs could change. And they just said that they're deliberating it, right? They're going to throw out the ideas to the teams and get their feedback out there as well. So, NASCAR, there's been a lot of floating there of a one-off race, right? Coming around NASCAR to kind of do the championship instead of having everybody lead up to it, you get the Final Four, one race sets the championship. A lot of people have floated, right? A 3-race battle for the championship, right? Instead of one race to settle it out there. Some people are saying NASCAR has come around the idea of that one-off race to determine the championship, is not the way to go. So the race here in Phoenix coming up in 7 weeks. Instead of doing that, let's open it up a little bit more instead of one race to win it as well. So, I think that would actually open it up. Have a 2-race championship run, right, over 2 races. Have a 3-race championship run for the 4 teams. Might break it up, might make it a little bit fair. Now, do you include more teams in that final, the final championship races? So they did talk about it. Teams are wondering if it could be deliberately changed, and people are pushing that route. Something to pay attention to, because some people are saying it could change as quick as next year, which I don't know how you do that when the schedule's already out. So obviously it would be looking towards 2027 that they would do that. And then the big announcement, of course, over the weekend, NASCAR Awards Banquet. They do it every year. The last several years it's been in Vegas. Of all places, well, it's being moved here in the Phoenix area, Scottsdale, Arizona. November 4th is what NASCAR has announced at the annual NASCAR Awards there in Scottsdale, November 4th. So obviously championship weekend, boom, right into the awards ceremony here in Vegas as well. Drivers, teams, industry executives, fans are allowed to go to this thing as well. Obviously deal with the champions and all the awards that happen from that side. Usually watch it on television, but there you go. And don't forget, the championship race is November 2nd this year. So they go right into November 4th of the award. So literally finish that race, everybody kind of hang out, and let's do the awards ceremony here in Scottsdale as well. So there we go, folks, the news around it. So as we wrap up this look back show here of the pit stop with last week's racing there at Bristol, I enjoyed the racing a lot. New Hampshire this weekend, not a big fan of. I'm not going to lie to you. Obviously, Xfinity Series off, but you could see first round of the playoffs, of course, for the Cup Series, final race for the Truck Series. So we'll see some competitive racing here in the Truck Series to avoid that bottom line coming up from there. But we'll talk about that on Thursday here with our Look Ahead show. And right now, I'll give you the preview here. Here is the Indy schedule as released officially by IndyCar this year, or so far this season. on the IndyCar side. So we know a lot of it, right? Streets of St. Petersburg. We knew that was happening, and we know that the Truck Series is going to do a street race as well that weekend there in Petersburg. Phoenix Raceway, it is confirmed. Saturday before the Cup race. Phoenix Raceway is going to host IndyCar on that Saturday before the Xfinity race. That is definitely happening on March 7th from that side. No, couple big ones missing here. No Mexico City right now as well. And then, they finish their race there, of course, at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna race there on September 8th. So IndyCar schedule's officially out, of course, on Fox here coming up. We'll deal more into the schedule. Nashville, by the way, was moved to July. So then you've got the night race is going to follow the World Cup final on Fox there for that Nashville race. And you see the Nashville race is on July 19th, I think is what that says. Again, World Cup final, which is happening here in America, right into an IndyCar race that night at Nashville. So big numbers coming into that point as well. And as I said, Laguna Seca there as your finale. It's a lot of people complaining about that here earlier today as well. And the other thing I noticed on this, and I'll have to look more into it to find out why, Milwaukee, 2-race weekend there in August, 29th and 30th for that. We had told you before, no Iowa this week, or this next year. And first 4 races are going to be in a 5-week span. And IndyCar traditionally races a week, 3 weeks off, races a week, couple weeks off. 4 out of the 5, 4 races in 5 weeks to start the season this year for IndyCar as well. You can see in April, only 1 race there. The streets of Long Beach being the only race coming up there in April. And then, of course, the World Cup takes over. That May, June, July time frame for that, what's happening there around that. So, this is just the schedule. I'll delve more into this, get some more details of it here for the Look Ahead show coming up on Thursday. But for now, we look back at Bristol, kind of got the thoughts on that, rehash that. Come and join me Thursday at the Pit Stop Talk on the socials, at the Pit Stop Talk on Podbean if you'd like to listen to this show in the podcast form. YouTube out there for the Pit Stop, along with the main event, McCollum on Business as well. My shows are all there on the free YouTube page, of course, here at Robat TV as well, folks. We'll see you on the Look Ahead show here on Thursday. Everybody have a great week. We'll see you then, folks.